After I had my third child, I started to feel kind of not quite right, a little bit lightheaded and short of breath. I actually tried to just brush it off until I couldn't anymore. Like just doing simple things would just be really hard during the day. Like walking to the end of the street, like felt like you'd run a marathon. Thinking that it wasn't right, there's something very wrong, but then you'd sit down for 5 minutes and when you got up again and moved around some more, you felt fine. I just kind of thought I was unfit for a while. And before I went to a doctor, and I had an ECG done, and when I got the results back from that, within half an hour, when initially they told me it would take 4 days for the results to come back, I got a phone call from the local GP telling me to go straight to the emergency. And I was kind of like, you know, you said it would take 4 days before you'd get the results. No, I have them now. You need to go to the emergency right now. Don't drive the car. Make sure someone goes with you. And usually when you go to emergency, you're sitting there for, you know, a long time waiting. They called me in straight away and brought a wheelchair out to me and told me I had to sit in the wheelchair. I wasn't allowed to walk. By that time, my son was only 7 weeks old, and they thought that maybe I had a blood clot. And probably by 2 o'clock in the morning, they let me go home because they couldn't find anything. So from there, I was referred to a cardiologist. He said that he'd been researching who the best person to send me to would be, which was professors at the Alfred Hospital. And during that time I was having other tests to confirm that it was pulmonary hypertension.
Right.
I was more focused on, like, because I have 3 kids, like you can't even imagine not being here. So it was hard.
Yeah, yeah.
During my pregnancy I didn't have the symptoms. I've never been sick my entire life up until that point. Even when I think back to when I was pregnant, trying to think if I did have symptoms, all I can come up with is maybe it was a bit harder to use a vacuum cleaner. Mm-hmm. That's it. But I was still able to do it.
Yeah. I'm
tired, but that's just pregnancy.
So then what happened when you had your transplant?
After transplant, yeah, I thought everything was good. Everything was good for about a year. There were odd days where I felt like I'd had symptoms again of PH. Just for example, one time we're out walking the dog and I'd been walking fine for about 20 minutes and then suddenly I just felt like I couldn't breathe and I had to stop. Like I could not take another step. And I had to just sit down for a couple of minutes and recover, and then I got up and continued walking. And it was just that one episode like that which made me think, wow, you know, this is all too familiar.
Yeah.
I had a routine echocardiogram booked. The lady doing that, she said to me, you know, when are you seeing the doctors? And I said, not for a couple of weeks, but I am going to see if I can get some antibiotics because I feel awful and I've got a chest infection and I know I need to get on top of it. So I went upstairs to the 5th floor to transplant unit to see if I could see a doctor just to get prescription for antibiotics. And like, you learn to read people when you're familiar with them, when you've been seeing people for so long. And things kind of didn't seem quite normal.
Was the doctor able to offer any hope at that stage, or?
Well, they were hoping that this time the symptoms weren't so bad as the first time, and that it might have been caught earlier, and if we got on top of it quicker, like maybe it won't be the same as the first time.
Right.
But it was actually worse. Like, it was quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a mixture of pH drugs as well as anti-rejection medication. It was back on the transplant list. There's a lot of testing before you get onto the list. I think I started a prostacyclin again in April, and by July I had my transplant. So
it's quite quick.
I was on the list only for 10 days before I got new lungs again.
Okay. What was it like going through it the second time?
It was easier.
Okay.
Yeah, after transplant it was pretty much the same as the first time. It's a relief. Like, you just wake up thinking, wow, thank God I can breathe. That's just like, I can breathe. Yeah. You don't realise how much you take for granted just being able to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not normal. Yeah, it still has challenges. Physically, some days I still get a little bit short of breath.
Mm-hmm.
It's just pH is like a new normal, and then transplant's like a whole different normal.
Right.
Another new normal.
Yeah.
I just tried to stay as positive as I could, because you're more focused on worrying about everybody else. Like, there is a positive side to it that I can see now. I just take it day by day. Just live day by day, really. Do what you can when you can.